Hey, in this episode, we talk with Mike Allton, a social media strategist and author at Social Media Hat, and also the head of strategic partnerships at Agora Pulse. Let's jump into the episode.
Welcome to the Event Collab podcast, where we feature people in the event industry and beyond who collaborate to make events and human connections more memorable. In each episode, we interview a new guest who brings a refreshing perspective on live events and human connection related topics and technologies. Let's get started.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Event Collab podcast. I'm Chris. This is Mark. What's going on, Mark? How you feeling today, man?
Feeling so good, Chris. Feeling so good. I got to go outside this morning, and the weather was actually pretty decent. So, that makes me happy. So, that's a good thing.
Yeah, it was like spring. They just stole spring for a couple days, and then they gave it back, huh?
Yeah, not my favorite.
Oh, that's so sweet, man. Yo, this episode was so good, man. We got to have Mike Allton on. What did you think of it, man?
He was so fun, and he gives so many little simple tips that will be so helpful for our event audience, like snackable content in your marketing program for your event. Like, so many good little things that will come out of this that will be helpful for people in our space that are throwing events.
Oh man, that's so amazing. Well, you guys tune in, check it out right now. Hey, what's going on? Welcome back, guys. Today, super excited. We got Mike here. Mike, how are you doing today, man? How's everything?
I'm doing really good, man. Thanks so much for having me. This is gonna be a blast.
Absolutely. Mark, how are you, man?
I'm doing very well today. It's a little bit warmer today than it has been, so it makes me happier.
Sweet. So Mike, let's start with just introducing yourself to our audience so they can know a little bit about you, your name and what you currently do now.
Yeah, so I've been in digital marketing for over a decade. I started the Social Media Hat, a blog, over a decade ago. I've been a CMO. I joined Agora Pulse in 2018. That's the company I'm with now full time. Still have the Social Media Hat because I can't stop writing, but I've been with Agora Pulse for over 4 years. And at Agora Pulse, I'm in charge of our relationships, which is really interesting. I get to run our influencer marketing program. I get to run our brand partnerships. And as a result of that, in 2018, when I was working with our CMO, he said, Mike, you've got all these ambassadors that we're paying and we're working with them. And I'd really love it if you ran some webinars and some events. And it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I've never done a virtual event before. I'd done a lot of live streaming. I'm going to date myself here. I did live streaming on the Google Plus platform a lot. That was when we had Hangouts on Air, which is super fascinating to me because back then, this is like 8-10 years ago, we were able to go live on that social network up to 10 people at a time. Lower thirds, comment tracking, all that was built into the platform, stuff that we still don't have today on Facebook and so on. But I'd done live streaming. I'd had panels of guests. I'd interviewed people like Guy Kawasaki and film producers like Gary Goldstein. But I'd never run a virtual event, like a true summit or conference. So that's kind of what got me started on that virtual event thing. And I've been doing it almost every quarter ever since.
Nice. No, that's super cool. So I know in that space, right, this is a question we always kind of get into with the virtual, because we're live event guys, like through and through. So 2020 hit, we were kind of like, well, what do we do, And it's like, so how was it for you to keep it like engaging and immersive on just being virtual?
That's a huge question because you're right. When the pandemic started, every in-person event in the world shut down, canceled, postponed, whatever. Some of them tried to transition to virtual. Other people were running virtual events already and they want to continue running virtual events. But what changed is that prior to that, it was okay if your webinar was just a presentation with a voiceover. As long as you were delivering great content, people would show up for your webinar. When they took away in-person events, there was a person who did it, right? When in-person events went away, what we lost was that ability to see each other and talk to each other and network and engage. There'd been some of that in virtual events prior to 2020, but with the pandemic, all of a sudden there was a need for for, as you said, immersive, engaging events. And that's something I've been trying very hard to replicate at Agorapulse. Basically looking for ways that I could allow attendees the time and the space to create what I call magical moments, an opportunity for them to meet other attendees. Because it's fine if I just sit here and lecture to you everything I know about a particular topic, and maybe you'll learn something. Probably not going to be very, very excited. I'm not that exciting of a speaker. And you'll come away with it, maybe learning something from me, but that's it. In 6 months from now, you'll probably have forgotten where you learned whatever it was that you learned. But if you meet somebody at one of my events and you have a connection, and then something happens as a result of that connection, let's say it's a friendship, maybe it's a partnership or a client relationship. From that moment on, every time you look at that individual person, every time you talk to them, you're going to remember the event where you met them. I mentioned I joined Agorapulse in 2018. I met the CEO of Agorapulse at an event in 2016. I was introduced to him by Peg Fitzpatrick. We sat down over lunch. He showed me the Agorapulse app on his phone. I fell in love with the app, not Emmerich. And I started that relationship with Emmerich though, and started using the tool. He made me an ambassador, and 2 years later, he ended up hiring me to run his ambassador program. And I will always remember that I met him at Social Media Marketing World in 2016, an event put on by Social Media Examiner. I can't unlink that information in my brain. It's in there permanently. So that's what I try to do for my events that I run, with the clients that I work with when they're setting up their events and I'm helping them figure out what they need to do. We create networking and engaging opportunities. Now that might change and differ from platform to platform, from event to event. You might have speed networking, you might have table talks, you might allow one-to-one meetings. There's a lot of options there, but the key is to give them that dedicated time and space.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So, as somebody who has some great marketing skills, how do you use those marketing skills when you're actually planning an event?
Oh, that's a great question. It's interesting to me. Hopefully it'll be interesting to you. Virtual events are typically used to market a business. They're used to generate leads and create sales and that sort of thing. So they're considered a marketing tactic, but they're kind of their own business. They're kind of their own product. So when you're creating a virtual event, the best way to go about doing it, the best way to create a virtual event plan, is to approach it as though it's its own product, which means you need to do product analysis, market fit, messaging, client analysis. You need to think about, what are we trying to accomplish with this thing? So just as if I was building a new app and I would have to identify, what problem am I solving with this app? Who am I trying to sell this app to? What are their struggles and pain points and challenges? How do they talk about those things? I have to do the same thing with my virtual event, because number one, I want to make sure that I'm focused on doing something that's going to help people with that event. And again, whether it's my event or somebody that I'm working with, why are we doing this? What are you trying to accomplish for your own business? And how are you going to help your clients? And then the next step is, who are you trying to reach with this event? It can't be for everybody. It just can't. That won't work. It's got to be for a specific group of people. And the more specific you can get, the more successful you'll be. If it's for marketers, well, that's too vague. Is it for social media managers of enterprise clients? Is it for marketing agency owners? Who are you trying to reach? What problems are you trying to solve? Because then, and this gets to your question, Mark, once you know those things, then you can do things like write the landing page for your event that actually talks to those people about the problems that they have and how your event is going to help them with those problems. You can build an agenda for your event with actual speakers who are experts on the topics, on the issues that your target audience has. Bring them in to address those topics. And now you've got a lineup and a message and a focus for the event that if I'm your target audience, I'm going to see that and be like, oh, that's really interesting to me. And I say all this having done it wrong for so many years. I used to, the big virtual events that I used to run, they'd have 12, 15, 20 different speakers. And just like that first event that I ran in 2018, these were typically people that I already had a relationship with. They were ambassadors for Agorapulse, social media influencers and experts on a variety of topics. And I would say, hey, let's do a virtual summit next quarter. What can you speak on? What would you like to speak? Would you like to be a speaker? And I would allow them to say yes or no. And then I would allow them to volunteer a topic of interest. And that topic could be anything that they wanted to talk about. I wasn't particular. I wasn't specific. Maybe they want to come talk about TikTok. Maybe they want to come talk about Pinterest. And you guys think, oh, okay, well, that's not too bad, except Agorapulse doesn't support TikTok. Agorapulse doesn't support Pinterest, at least at the moment that we're recording this. So if my thought process is that I'm going to offer attendees, everyone that I'm talking to in the world, if I'm going to offer them a virtual summit with 15 sessions and just hope that they look through the agenda and find one or two of interest, it's like this shotgun approach, right? And if the ones that they find of interest are on TikTok or Pinterest, platforms that Agorapulse doesn't support, these will not become customers of Agorapulse. They don't need Agorapulse. That we're not a right fit. So I haven't done my due diligence up front of targeting the kind of people, the kind of audience members that are going to help my business and craft a message and craft an event that could actually help them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I think for us too, we often say, when we're interviewing a potential client, what things do you want the audience to sense or to feel or to understand when they walk away? Because if they can answer those questions, we can properly design a technical environment where all of them are comfortable and where their presenters can be the most effective for that environment also. So it's great to hear you say that, because I feel like often people will come to us and, the story I often tell is, I had a client come to me and say, man, I went to Jay-Z last night and he had a 300-foot LED wall behind him and I want that for my meeting. Great. We will help you spend your money, but how does that help you connect with your audience? And if it doesn't, it's just flashy for the sake of being flashy, instead of providing a very helpful solution for both the audience and the presenter so that they can both connect in that environment.
That's so true. I did these Saturday workshops with clients, these VIP strategy days, and I was with a guy a couple weekends ago who's got an event probably 6 months from now. And we spent 4.5 hours just knocking out his entire strategy for that event. The entire first hour was just all about his why. Why are you putting on a virtual event? What is your purpose? What are your goals? What are you trying to actually accomplish? And he started off by saying, and this is why it took an hour, he started off by saying, well, I want leads and sales. I go, okay, that's kind of superficial. Let's break that down and dig into this. Why do we want to do a virtual event? To generate leads. I mean, you could do paid ads and generate leads, right? You can hire an SDR to get sales. And so we kept digging, and I kept asking why, for what purpose. And at one point he says, well, I want to host a virtual event so that I can make friends. It's like, wait, did you just say you want to spend $10,000 on a virtual event to make friends? Really? Why? Why is that? Let's break that down. So we spent a good amount of time, pulling that apart. Is it really friends? Is it relationships? Is it contacts? For him, it was his way of thinking about partnerships in the industry, which, I see you guys nodding your head, which is like, oh yeah, okay, partnerships make sense now from a business perspective. And it also then helps inform everything else. This is why we do this up front, right? Because now I'm thinking, okay, this guy wants to make partnerships. He needs visibility in the event. He can't be behind the scenes, right? Like my events, I'm not usually the MC personally, right? So if you come onto Agorapulse events, you're not necessarily going to see my name all over the place, because it's not about me, it's about Agorapulse. But this guy, he wants to be visible. He may not have known that until he articulated that need of partnerships, right? But in order to create any kind of relationship, you have to be, physically there and front and center and involved. So we're like, okay, well, now you're probably going to be the MC for your event, which he was totally cool with. And maybe a keynote speaking slot, which again, that wouldn't necessarily have been the case with somebody else who maybe we're just bringing in a bunch of different expert speakers to deliver the content. That's important. So yeah, don't do it just for flashiness sake. Absolutely. Have a reason and know why you're doing it so that you can make good strategic decisions all the way through.
Yeah, all the way through. Good job. Yep.
Man, that's so good. So one of the things we always like to touch on is because, again, it's the Event Collab podcast. And so what we like to ask is in your process between you and your team, whether, planning events or coaching or even on the social media side, like how does collaboration play into that for you?
There's a lot of levels to that. And I love this question. There's the internal collaboration within the team, which is pretty cool. So like at Agora Pulse, we have a marketing ops team. We have a design team, we have the entire rest of the marketing team. We have our sales team. And so every step of the way, we're using Asana to plan out the entire event structure of every upcoming event, when it's going to happen, what that's going to look like, all the different moving pieces. And then we can have tasks so that we can collaborate on, okay, what are the design elements that you're going to need? The last big event that I ran last year was using AirMeet. I liked AirMeet a lot because I was able to create an entire custom venue. So when you walked into Agency Summit last year, you didn't see somebody else's logo and a lot of other stuff. It was, wow, okay, this is an immersive experience. And complete with being able to, I had my design team create an image of a television that was like part of the wall of the venue. And I was able to use HTML mapping to put a video on the screen of the TV, wherever they put it on the background. And in that video was playing French music. And my head of customer success, Christelle, this beautiful Parisian woman with her beautiful French accent, was welcoming you, because we're based in Paris, by the way. So, you had this feel, this immersive feel, including music and French accent welcoming you to the event. So they helped me with that. That was even our support team collaborating with me to make that project immersive. And then you also have sales needing to be involved. I got to collaborate with sales so that they know this stuff's coming. My event, that one brought in 2,800 attendees, 2,800 leads. It's not a good idea for me to tell sales, oh, by the way, here's your spreadsheet of leads that you didn't know was coming. They all are expecting a phone call tomorrow. Merry Christmas. That's not going to work. They need to know that that's coming. They need to have workflows set up and qualifications set up and time and everything so that they can work the leads. Because for me, it's not a business success if all I do is bring in a bunch of registrants. Registrants don't help Agora Pulse. Agora Pulse is a subscription-based service. You have to sign up and give us money for us to continue to be in business, which means it's a measurement for me of success when it comes to actual revenue. But I depend on the sales team, so we got to collaborate there. So that's internally. Externally, that's really my world. Right. Now we're talking about relationships with other people who maybe aren't working with you. I work with influencers, like I said. I work with other brands, which means when I'm putting on an event, I'm talking to speakers. I'm talking to other brands who are potentially sponsors. We've done a lot of different ways over the years. I brought in influencers who we already had a relationship with. So that was just kind of a part of the larger relationship. We're working with them. We're paying them for influencer marketing campaigns. We're paying them to be a partner, affiliate commissions and that sort of thing. So they're more than happy to come speak at my events. Other kinds of speakers, we have to pay them because that's their job. Like Jay Baer and Goldie Chan are two great examples. These are keynote speakers. They charge tens of thousands of dollars to come speak at events. I was able to, first of all, talk with them directly because I had that relationship with them and able to collaborate with them. Whereas other people, you have to go through a gatekeeper and fill out a form and go through a more formal process to get somebody like to come speak at your event. And when you have that relationship in place, there's a greater degree of flexibility and cooperation there. Again, if I just go to somebody's forum, like if I want Biz Stone to speak at my event, I'm not talking to Biz Stone directly. I'm going through his agency that handles his speaking gigs, and I'm talking to one of their gatekeepers and telling them my budget and maybe he's available, maybe he can fit my budget, probably not. By the way, he's like $100,000 to speak, so definitely not my budget. But having that relationship in place, I probably said relationship 6 times already on this recording because they're important. Having that relationship in place gives me that flexibility to be able to talk directly to the influencer, and they're going to want to work with me because I've done things for them in the past and I've helped them out and I've been there for them. So that's the speaker side. And then the brand partners are fun because you could look at brand partnerships as sponsors for the event. So like if you're putting on a virtual summit and you're going to offer booths and you're going to offer the ability to sponsor tracks, maybe you're going to offer the ability to actually offer content as a sponsored presentation. You can sell that. You can sell that very lucratively. In fact, I often argue that virtual events are a better investment for brands than in-person events just because of the data, right? We were at Social Media Marketing World, Agorapulse was, in March. And we were there in person. And I'm our events guy. So I was in charge of our entire process and our entire presence. And we had a booth. There were, 2,000 people at that event. And they all had to walk past our booth. They had to, because they had to walk past the booth to get to the ballroom where the keynotes were and all the other sessions and that sort of thing. Clearly, not all 2,000 people stopped by the booth. I don't know exactly how many people stopped by the booth. I don't know how many people stopped as they were walking by and watched the video from a distance because we had a video playing. I don't know how many people walked up and took a flyer. Now, I know if we scan their badge, I know if they sign up for one of the things that we had available for them to sign up, right? I got that data. But beyond that, those kind of touchless points, I have no idea. But if you're on a virtual event platform and you're offering your sponsors booths, you get metrics, man. You know exactly who came to that booth, what they downloaded, what they viewed, how much time they spent, who they talked to. You can even tell which sessions they went to. Again, comparing it to Marketing World for just a moment. Marketing World had like 4 major tracks. They had sessions on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on Facebook ads, those kinds of things. I don't know, out of all the people who came to my booth, maybe even the ones that signed my thing, I don't know which sessions they went to and how engaged they were. I already mentioned Agorapulse doesn't support TikTok. So if a bunch of people came to my booth and then the only sessions they went to were TikTok sessions, clearly they're interested in TikTok. And there's nothing against TikTok, but TikTok doesn't really have an API. So there's very little that Agorapulse as a third-party solution can do for you. So if that's your jam, I can't help you. You're not a target audience for me. You're not going to buy Agorapulse. Why would you? So having that information is really critical. Instead, I can run a virtual event and I can have sessions about a variety of topics, maybe for marketing agencies. And maybe some of the topics are how to add social media marketing services to your repertoire as an agency. Maybe you're an SEO agency and you've never thought about it, but I can teach you how to add social media. Well, every attendee who attends that session, that's targeted prospects for my sales team. My sales team would love to know that information, right? We had 2,800 leads, but 400 of them went to the session on how to add social media marketing services to their agency to make more money. All right, let's call them tomorrow. So those are the kinds of things that I'm doing on the event side. And those are the ways that I'm collaborating then with brands, because they can come in as sponsors, like I said, as paid sponsors, but they can also come in as actual partners, and they can help me promote the event to their audience, and we can work together to make that a reality and reach all new audiences with my events.
Yeah, and make it good for both of you at the same time, which is great. That's exactly what you want out of that. That's perfect. How would you recommend that event planners utilize social media to grow their event? And I'm gonna maybe ask a detailed question, because to me there's like a before, a during, and an after strategy. So maybe you could touch on like all 3 of those and how event planners should maybe utilize their social media to help.
There's a lot of ways that you can use social media that we couldn't possibly get through in a single recording. I'll start with one idea that would apply to all 3 of those scenarios. So the first idea is let's go with a video first strategy, and let's create short video snippets. Because the thing about social media is, I didn't open up Facebook this morning to learn about your event. I'm sorry, I didn't. I didn't go to social media to read a long blog post about an event or a press release or watch a 30-minute trailer video about what I did not do that. That's not why I was on social media. So you hear people talk a lot about creating snackable content, bite-sized content, short form video content, and this is why. With a 30-second video clip, you have a much greater likelihood of capturing my attention for that 30 seconds. Now, you're not going to sell me in 30 seconds on anything, but what you can do is tease what it is that you're talking about enough that you leave it to me to decide if I want to learn more. So if you're creating 30-second video snippets and you're putting them, you create landscape size for regular feeds for Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. You create square for the Instagram feed. You create tall portrait size for TikTok, for stories, for Reels. Okay, so that's the format, and you can put that out on all of your platforms, and you can use that as a bit of a hook to get somebody's attention to see if they might be interested in learning more about your event. Now, what are the videos? I'm glad you asked, Mark. So the videos, you would use your speakers whenever possible, pre-event. Ask your speakers to just look at their phone and share in 30 seconds or less. What is their topic about? Why are they excited for the event? What are the attendees going to learn from their thing? Maybe something unique about them. Now, you wouldn't do all those 4 things. These would be like 4 different videos, right? Just any one of those things would be 30 seconds. I'm Mike Allton, and I'm telling you how to build your brand ambassador program at Chris's event next month. I'm going to tell you all the ins and outs of influencer marketing so you can have a kick-ass affiliate program. I don't know, I just made that up. But that's what you
That's a great tip, though. That's a great tip. That's a great simple tip.
Yeah. So you put that, and you ask them to do that. Do it twice in both formats, and get as many of your speakers to do that as possible. If it's a paid speaker, just include that in the contract, right? If I'm paying Jay Bear $17,000 to speak at my event, I can include in the contract, ask Jay to make 2 30-second videos for me about what his talk is or why an attendee should attend his talk specifically. So that's pre-event. And of course, you can create your own, just high level. This is why we're doing the event. This is who we're talking to. During the event, maybe some speakers will do that during the event. You can do that yourself, but I would also find ways to encourage your attendees to create their own video content during the event and create some UGC, some user-generated content that your brand can amplify in between those user accounts and the accounts that they're sharing to and your own accounts and maybe some influencers that are also helping you to amplify. Now you're creating FOMO. Your event's going on, so it's not like that you're going to get somebody to go sign up for your event at that point, but you're going to be reaching people who weren't attending the event. They're going to learn about your event maybe for the first time, or maybe they heard about it before, but they didn't bother to sign up. But now they're seeing the excitement, the buzz from the people who are at your event right now. Oh my God, I was just at Chris Penn's session, and I didn't know that if I don't switch to Google Analytics 4 right now, I'm going to start losing data in a year when I have to switch. They'll say things like that. They'll share things like that. And you can do things like gamification and prompts during the event that will encourage your users to share, your attendees to share what they're experiencing on video. It works great in in-person events as well. Obviously, you can be as the event host, interviewing people as they come out of sessions, interviewing people as they're talking to booths and that sort of thing. That's what we did at Marketing World. In fact, in March, we were showing off a new tool at Agorapulse at our booth, and as specific influencers walked up, they saw the demo, we stopped them on the way out and interviewed them. What did you think? What did you like about that? How do you think that's going to change how you approach business? And create a video content for ourselves that we're able to then repurpose and respin and reuse in all kinds of different ways. Then finally, you got after the event, where you could be talking to attendees and speakers alike and asking them, what did you learn? What were your takeaways? What did you like the most? And that's going to end up being great social media content that will hopefully key into your next event, because hopefully every time you're planning a current event, as soon as you get most of the details knocked out for that current event, you're already thinking ahead to the next one. That way, during this next event, whenever your next event is, you can be pre-promoting the following event, right? So if you're asking then your attendees and your speakers, what do they love the most about that event? Then that's not only more buzz and that sort of thing for the event that they just came out of, and the brand, your brand that just put that on, but you can use that as testimonials and teasers for the next event after that.
That's so good, man. You struck my marketing bone. Like me and Mark getting these conversations with marketing people, and he's like, "Oh, I see it. You're scratching your itch, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man. This is my lane. I love this. I love this stuff." I was like, "Man, we could talk about this for hours."
Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is just one tactic. You know, I mean, there's so much more that you could do on social media, but this is just one. Wet your whistle.
Oh man, that's so good. All right, so this part of the show, we like to do rapid fire fun questions, right? So it's just a this or that or a quick answer and see if we can get through it. So first one, are you a coffee or a tea guy?
Coffee.
All right, so besides Agorapulse, what is your favorite mobile phone app?
Oh, my favorite mobile phone app? I got to look at the phone. What do I use on there? Evernote.
That's a good choice.
That's a really good one. What is one question that you wish people would ask you?
Or maybe like, what question did we not know enough to ask you, maybe?
Well, one fun question is, why Star Wars?
Oh, why Star Wars?
You want to ask
Hey, Mike,
the question?
why Star Wars?
I was like, I gotta go. I gotta know now.
I mean, I don't know how much you know, but I have this reputation as a Star Wars guy, and you know, if you can see the background, there's a stormtrooper helmet up there.
Yeah, I noticed now. Yeah,
there's a pit droid right here, an actual pit droid. That was a personal branding decision that I made 6 or 8 years ago. I was creating my personal brand on social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, Blab, Google Plus, you name it. I was everywhere. And I knew how important personal branding is. And I also knew that I have a lot of personal interests. A lot. I like movies, I like music, sports. I mean, you name it. I have hobbies. I like to read books and so on. That's overwhelming. And if I'm sharing all those different things at different times, none of them are going to stick. I need to pick one. I need to pick one thing that I would talk about on a regular basis. Not always, because I'm not all about Star Wars, but I would hit on Star Wars on a regular basis. I would integrate it into my online persona to make myself memorable, to make myself relatable. And it's crazy how effective it's worked. I keep telling people, you need to do something like this for yourselves. Not everybody listens to me. But I mentioned Peck Fitzpatrick and Guy Kawasaki earlier in the show. If you don't know them, they're wonderful people. Guy used to work for Apple. He was the chief brand evangelist for Apple. He's now the chief evangelist for Canva. He's written over a dozen books. Peg has written many books. She's a wonderful human being, a social media strategist out of New Hampshire. She works with and for Guy. They co-authored the book, The Art of Social Media. And when they were talking about personal branding, they cited me. They talked about me as their example in their book because I'm known for Star Wars. When people see the weirdest things on social media, they'll see a grill, like one of those bubble grills shaped like a Death Star, and they'll tag me on it. They'll see a toaster that prints out toasted bread that looks like Darth Vader, and they'll tag me on these things because they think of me. May 4th was, Star Wars Day. May the 4th be with you, right? There are people who, when it gets to that day and they see everybody else talking about Star Wars, who do they think of? Mike Allton.
So little another, like, not knowing to ask this, we actually have that Darth Vader toaster in our household.
There you go. See, you got it. And now when you look at
now
it,
I'm always going to think of you.
Me.
Right? Exactly. Right. There you go.
I don't get any royalties though for that.
Yeah, no. Those are all gone. Those are definitely all gone. All right, so I'm going to leave this question open. Where do you think the industry will be in 3 years? So you can answer that for like events or for marketing, whichever one speaks to you.
Well, talking about events, just because it's very topical. We went through the pandemic where there were no in-person events, and it was 100% virtual, right? Lockdowns have pretty much ended, at least at the time of this recording. And I mean, who knows? I'm not Nostradamus. Who knows? But at this particular moment, pretty much anybody can attend an in-person event if they want to. And so what we're seeing, industry professionals, we're seeing this massive influx back to in-person events. People are trying to put on in-person events as much as they can, and people are flocking to airports and trains and boats and everything to get to their in-person events because they've felt constrained, right, and locked up literally for a couple of years. The pendulum is going to shift back the other way. People are going to remember why travel was annoying even before the pandemic. They're going to run into new problems that they didn't have pre-pandemic that are a result of the pandemic that maybe aren't necessarily, having to deal with coronavirus, but there's labor shortages. There's other kinds of travel restrictions and issues that are cropping up that are impacting people's travel and making it more challenging than it was before. And then they're going to remember, you know what? Being able to just stay at my home and go to an event virtually and, being able to see my kids tonight and not having to travel. And that was convenient. So they're going to remember that. We're definitely going to have more hybrid events than we ever used to have because of all these things that I just said. People want to go to in-person events, but they like the convenience of virtual. And they like the reassurance of having a virtual option. We don't know what's going to happen in 2 months. We just don't. And that has nothing to do with Omicron. I mean, we have no idea what in the world might be happening in 2 months. We just now are more aware that things can happen to disrupt our plans than ever before. And if I'm investing in your event that's 2 months out, I'm starting to ask myself, is it worth it? Can I commit to that? How do I know for sure I'm going to be able to travel to that event, particularly if it's international? Right? All the international struggles that we had before are just magnified, larger than they ever were pre-pandemic. And so that's why 77% of attendees want a virtual option today. They want to see that they can change to a virtual ticket if they need to, or if they want to, or if the event changes. I mentioned social media marketing world a couple times. We actually had a second event scheduled the week after, because we learned about that event later that was scheduled at the hotel next to the convention center the following week. And it was definitely hitting our target audience for Agorapulse. So we thought, let's just stay in town. Let's extend our hotel stay. Let's book our airfare for the week later. We've got our booth. We're going to have extra swag and extra giveaways and all that kind of stuff. Let's just stick around. The week before Social Media Marketing World, that event called me and said, hey, Mike, we have to postpone to May because we don't have enough people signed up. They didn't go to virtual. They didn't really give us any options at all. But that just happened. That was this year. That was just not long ago that an event was not hitting the numbers that they needed to hit to be successful, and they had to change their entire strategy. It was okay for us. We just put on our own event. But that'll happen for a number of reasons. Speakers will back out and so on. So having that virtual option is definitely the way we're going to go. So we had this huge swing over to virtual, like 100% to virtual. Now we're swinging back to in-person, and there'll be kind of a centering of the road over the next 12 to 18 months where we'll hit what will feel like a normal stride after that point, where there's still going to be in-person events. Absolutely. Definitely more virtual events than there ever were before, but quite a few hybrids as well.
That's an interesting perspective. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's promising in a way for us, right? What's the best piece of advice you were ever given?
Like about anything?
Yeah, you can't use "May the Force be with you" too. That's already out of the bag.
That was already a good one. That was already together.
That's taken.
I have to laugh because there's two versions of this, and the professional version is perception is projection. It's a statement by Tad James from NLP, and basically it's talking about how what you're thinking about when you look at somebody, how you filter and change what they're saying to you verbally and non-verbally, and how you process that internally is how you end up projecting onto them. So communication isn't what you say, it's how it's received, because you're saying things that you think you're saying to me, but I'm processing it myself, how I understand the words, how I've seen and heard and understood those words to be used in the past, how I think about those words, right? I mean, if I say the word event, well, that means one thing to you and it means something else to somebody totally different. So as you're thinking about that, you're focusing on specific things, and you're if you're following the trainings of Tad James and NLP, you're focusing on the intention of the individual and their worldview and trying to understand what it is they're trying to communicate. Now, I laughed because in Star Wars, Qui-Gon Jinn said something very similar. He said, your focus determines your reality.
Right.
And so I often quote Qui-Gon because it's a very similar point. He's like, whatever you're focusing on, that's what you're focused on. And that's how you're perceiving everything else around you, to the point where sometimes you're so focused on this thing, you just assume everybody else is focused on this thing. Whether it's news, whether it's something on your desk, it doesn't matter. That's what you're thinking about. And you're going to project that on other people. So that's not a good tip, but it's something that I've been learning and thinking about quite a bit. I recently went through NLP training and have been studying and thinking about improving how I communicate. And really that means improving how I allow other people to communicate with me and how I kind of digest what it is they're saying, because we want to make sure that we're doing things, for instance, like building rapport, right? Where we're communicating with each other and we're going out of our way to listen and understand and relate. Because if we're in rapport, that means everything that I'm going to say to you from that moment on, you're going to receive that much better.
Yeah, it's all about creating the environment for the other person, whether it's live or virtual, one-on-one, or 1,000, 100,000 people. You're absolutely correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well said. So what does, when you think of the word collaboration, what does it mean to you?
It definitely means to work together. And I say that because my title at AgoraPulse is Head of Strategic Partnerships. So I often get LinkedIn Connect requests and emails from people who want to partner, they want to collaborate, they want to have strategic collaboration, and they're looking to sell me. These are sales pitches. And that is a vendor relationship. It is technically a kind of partnership. It's technically a kind of collaboration, but that's not generally what people mean. This is what we were just talking about a moment ago, right? Perception is projection. If you're talking to me and you truly want to collaborate, in my mind, I'm thinking, well, we're going to work on something together to accomplish something together that is to our mutual benefit in some way. That's got to be mutual benefit. It doesn't necessarily have to be of equal benefit. Not every business is the same. Not every individual is the same, which means, we're all on different journeys. We're all on different points of our journey, of our business or professional, personal success. So anytime any one of us does something with each other, someone's probably going to benefit a little bit more, right? I think I benefit a little bit more from being on your show than you benefited from me. I don't know, just my thought.
Well, I was going to go the other way, so this must be pretty good for both of us then. That's great.
But this is a great example of collaboration, right? We decided, hey, yeah, we should record a show, and you're providing the platform, you're providing the context of the show, you're providing the questions, and I'm jumping in and providing as much information and value as I possibly can. This is something we do at AgoraPulse, where the tables are reversed. I'm the showrunner for our Agency Accelerated show. So I'm going out, I'm finding the guests, I'm producing the show, I'm crafting the questions. We have Stephanie Liu who's hosting, and then the guest is coming on, and the guest is hopefully providing as much value and interest and engagement as they possibly can, and we're extracting that out, and then we're repurposing it into the podcast and the snippets and all the things, which hopefully also helps them, because hopefully we're now giving them a platform on which they can reach our audience and let themselves be a little more well-known. So that's what collaboration means to me.
Yeah, that's a great definition. That's a great definition.
That's so good, man. Look, we appreciate you, man. This has been so good. I'm over here taking notes myself. Like, man, perception is projection. I need to think about that, man.
We're gonna get T-shirts made for that, I think.
There you go.
Let the people know, man. Where can they connect with you at? Where can they find you and see more about what you're doing?
Well, appreciate that. First of all, I really appreciate being invited, because this is great. I love doing shows like this. I love having these kinds of conversations with like-minded guys, and talking about things that we're all interested in, we're all passionate about. On the socials, I'm Mike Allton. That's Allton. The best place that you can find me is thesocialmediahat.com. That's the blog that I mentioned I've had for over 10 years. And lately, like the last 6 months or so, I've been super focused on sharing everything I've learned about virtual events. And so I started a podcast, the Virtual Event Strategist Podcast. The second episode will be dropping shortly after we're done recording this episode. And I'm just super pumped about that particular project. This is kind of funny. I've been writing for over 10 years. I have never committed to a schedule. Not once have I ever said, I am going to come out with my new content, whatever that is, on this date and time. But I've done that with the podcast. And this is not my first podcast, but again, I've never had a schedule. And I said, you know what? Among all the other things that I'm going to do and test, committing to the audience that I'm going to be there for them on this such and date. So every Wednesday morning, a brand new episode of the Virtual Event Strategist is going to come out. It'll be on the blog. It'll be in my email. And I'm going to do that through the rest of the year and commit to that. We'll see how that goes.
Well, Chris made me do the same thing. He told me what he wanted to do. I said, you want to do what? But he's been right. So thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Anytime, man. Yeah. Look, but it's just an excuse, right? It's an excuse to get on a video call with a guy like Mike and get free knowledge. And it's just like, oh man, that's really good to me. Take notes, right?
Yeah. Yes, you were right,
That's a really
Chris.
good point. That is a really good point. I actually asked on LinkedIn and Twitter just like an hour or two before we started. I said, when someone asks you if they can pick your brain, what do you say? Because most of us in the industry, we cringe, right? Because they're like, you want me to get on a 30-minute call for free so I can just tell you what I know because you don't want to pay me. Or you could interview me on a podcast for an hour for free. Ask the same questions.
Just start asking you about yourself and, hey, what do you do, man? Let us know. And it's like, but then it's
so how would you do
right?
this? Then it's collaboration.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's so good, Mike. We appreciate your time, man. And I mean, like we're already talking notes of like, man, we got to have him back just to talk about the one thing and the little piece that he just.
Yeah, we have you scheduled for 3 more podcasts, by the way. We'll let you know what those are. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. But man, thanks again for coming on, man, and we appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for joining us today on the Event Collab podcast. Remember, competition makes us become the best version of ourselves, and collaboration makes it better for all of us. We'll see you in the next episode.